For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This is Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Coming to you live from the Circa Sportsbook here in downtown Las Vegas. I'm Scott Seidenberg. It is Live Bet Sunday here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. You can always follow along on Twitter at Scott's On Air or hit us all up on the network at VSiN Live as we are monitoring the action in progress right now on the ice. Third period between the Dallas Stars and the Winnipeg Jets, with Dallas having a 4-2 lead. This was a 2-1 Dallas lead after the first period. Winnipeg tied it in the second period. It was 2-2 going into the third, and then Dallas took the lead after a lengthy replay on the goal. A video review determined it was a good goal, and Mikko Rantanen extending the lead to 4-2, and that's where we sit right now with 9 minutes to go in the third period, as Dallas will look to take a 2-1 lead in this series. Your live puck line right now is Dallas -2.5 at -145. Your live total of 7.5 is juiced to the under, significantly juiced to the under, because we might just get one empty net goal here in this spot. And so 4-2 could easily be a 4-3 finish, and that's about it. We're not going to get multiple empty 5-2 finish. That's what I meant. You're not going to get multiple empty netters. If and when Winnipeg pulls the goaltender at 4-2, if Dallas scores an empty netter and it's 5-2, they're not going to pull them again. They're just going to accept the loss, and you move on to the next game. This series back and forth, the thing that's impressive about Dallas is, should they finish this win here tonight, they are the only team in this Stanley Cup playoffs that have not lost back-to-back games. So it's incredible stuff by them. The game does go over the 5.5 total, and for those keeping at home, that is now a perfect 4-0 in these Stanley Cup playoffs. When there's a shutout in the series, the next game has gone over the total, now 4-0. All 4 times we have had a shutout, the over has hit in the next game. And tomorrow, we might have another system play, if you will, because the Capitals and Hurricanes, that was a game that was a shutout in game number 3. Does game number 4 go over in a series that all 3 games have gone under so far? So that's something that we can talk about a little bit later on here on the program. But coming up, moments away from first pitch in Cleveland, Sunday Night Baseball between the Phillies and the Guardians, and we have a play on this game. We're going to go with the Philadelphia Phillies minus the 1.5. Take a little plus money stab at that right now, depending on where you look. Let's see, best price you can get here at Circa, that is going to be, let's see, even money. Here at Circa, you can get plus 102, I believe, on DraftKings, but we're looking at an even money prop here on the Phillies, minus a 1.5 against the Cleveland Guardians. And it's simple for me. We're going to back Zach Wheeler, who has been tremendous this season, and Wheeler is a guy who gets better as the season progresses. So, and we've seen this countless times throughout his career, starts off the season maybe a little bit shaky, or even, this season he really wasn't, but, well, I guess his third start was his worst start. That was against Atlanta. But then when the weather starts to heat up, Zach Wheeler becomes the Cy Young candidate that we know and love to see every single season. He has now gone 4 consecutive starts of at least 6 innings pitched and only 2 runs allowed. 4 consecutive starts, at least 6 innings, and only 2 runs allowed in each game. 7 innings, 2 runs allowed to the Marlins. 6 innings, 2 runs allowed to the Mets. 6 2/3, 2 runs allowed to Washington. And 7 innings, 2 runs allowed to the Tampa Bay Rays. Pretty safe. We're going to pencil in Zach Wheeler for a quality start in this game, going 6 innings and allowing less than 3 runs. I think what's fascinating is that in every single start for Zach Wheeler this year, he has allowed 1 home run. So think about that. 4 straight starts, only allowing 2 runs. But it's because of 1 pitch, the home run. 1 home run to the Rays, 1 to the Nationals, 1 to the Mets, 1 to the Marlins, 1 to St. Louis, 1 to Atlanta, 1 to Colorado, 1 to Washington. He's yet to allow more than 1, but he's also yet to go a start without allowing any. I think that's pretty fascinating stuff here from Zach Wheeler. But I do expect Wheeler to shut down this Guardians lineup. And look, if he gives up 2 or 3 runs, that's okay, because I think the Phillies are going to get at least 5 in this game. I would like the Phillies team total to go over as well. I like the full game to go over because I think the Phillies are going to beat up on Luis Ortiz. If we look at Luis Ortiz's numbers here for Cleveland, 2-3 on the year with a 5.30 ERA. He's got a 5.09 expected ERA, so it's not like he's getting unlucky in these starts, and a 4.24 FIP, which is amongst the highest of all pitchers that are pitching or were pitching here on Sunday in Major League Baseball. So he is a fade candidate for me. I think this Phillies offense will have success against Luis Ortiz. We go back and we look through his game logs. 5 runs allowed to the Washington Nationals his last time out on 1 home run. He did shut down the Minnesota Twins, but he allowed 4 runs to the Yankees, 2 runs to the Pirates, just 1 run to the Royals, 3 to the A's, and 7 to the San Diego Padres. Home runs allowed on the year. He's allowed 5 home runs on the year for so far this season, and strikeouts. Yeah, a couple, 4 last game, 5, 8, 10 against the Royals. That was his best start of the year. But other than that, this guy is hittable. And so I look at Luis Ortiz, and I think the Phillies are going to have a pretty, I don't want to say easy, I think the Phillies are going to be able to get to him. So I think my best bet in this game is going to be Phillies minus the 1.5. That's what I'll lay here for Phillies Guardians Sunday Night Baseball, set to get underway momentarily in Cleveland. Coming up a little bit later on, it'll be the NBA playoffs continuing game number 4 between the Cavaliers and the Pacers. Big win for Cleveland as they avoided going down 3-0 and putting themselves right back in this series. And in that game 3, it was the first time since April 23rd that the Cleveland Cavaliers were at full strength. And so you wonder, is this now going to be the version of the Cleveland Cavaliers that we saw throughout the regular season and that we expected to see here in the second round of the playoffs? Because getting by Miami in the first round, no one's going to even blink an eye at that. That's what you should have done. That's why the play-in rounds are stupid here in the NBA playoffs. We don't need them. There's no reason for those extra teams to get into the postseason. They're not competitive when they get in. So the Cavs cruise in the first round, suffer injuries, Darius Garland out, Mobley out, Hunter out. You lose the first 2 games to the Pacers. Everyone's talking about how dangerous the Pacers are. And then Cleveland showed up and absolutely dominated them in game number 3 on the road. A healthy Cleveland Cavaliers team is a scary proposition. And Donovan Mitchell scored 43 points, and people are saying, well, he's not going to be Superman every single game, and that's not the recipe for success. And I would agree with you. That's not the recipe for success. But what is having his complementary pieces contribute. And in that game number 3, Darius Garland, his first game back, 25 minutes, just 10 points and 3 assists. But that was his first game back from the toe injury. Now having a game under his belt, more practices and getting into the flow of the offense, I think we're going to see a much better effort from Darius Garland in this game. And if we have Garland contributing at the rate that he was contributing during the regular season, then the Cavs offense is not going to have to rely on Donovan Mitchell scoring 40-plus points, and they're going to start to click. And this could be a dangerous, dangerous game for the Indiana Pacers. I know that the line has started to move, and it has gone from Cleveland minus 5.5 down to Cleveland minus 5 here at Circa. I get it, okay? Take the points with the home dog, and, the dogs have been so great here in this postseason, and maybe it's a zigzag theory, right? Cleveland takes game 3, the Pacers can take game 4, or maybe Cleveland's not going to shoot as hot as they did, or Donovan Mitchell's not going to do what he did for another game in a row. But I lean Cleveland here. I think this could be a scary situation here for Indy with Cleveland getting healthy now. So that's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. We'll talk more about the NBA coming up in a few minutes. MacKenzie Rivers, NBA handicapper from pregame.com, will join me here on the program. We'll get his thoughts on this game. Maybe there's any prop bets that he likes. But I think it's interesting that when you look at the series market, we have had Cleveland become a minus 170 favorite despite being down 2-1. I think that should tell you a lot about what we're seeing here in this series. I want to tell you guys about Edge Boost, the first ever bank account built for bettors, ensuring all gambling transactions are approved. No usage fees, no minimums. Earn cashback rewards, 100% approval for all betting deposits. Sign up today at edgeboost.bet with promo code LIVE. Deposit $25 and Edge Boost will match the deposit. That's edgeboost.bet. We roll on here. They're getting underway in Cleveland between the Phillies and the Guardians. This is Live Bet Sunday here on VSiN.
This is Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Well, not the start we hoped for in Philadelphia as the Phillies. Bryson Stott leads off with a single, and then Trey Turner grounds into a double play. So it was the start we were looking for, as we have the Phillies minus 1.5 as Stott singled to start the game against Luis Ortiz, but then Trey Turner grounds into a double play. It's been a while now for the Phillies in this incarnation of this lineup with Stott leading off and Schwarber in the 4-hole. But I got to be honest, I long for the days of Schwarber leading off. I loved having Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff spot for the Philadelphia Phillies. Just absolutely a dangerous batter in the leadoff spot for them, because as you're a pitcher to start the game, as Bryce Harper strikes out to end the inning, you're a pitcher to lead off the game. You can't – there's no just throw a get-me-over fastball to start the game, or hey, let's settle into the game and just pitch to the first batter, because you make one mistake, Schwarber takes you deep, and then all of a sudden you're down 1-0 before the game even starts. So I never really, I enjoyed him there, but it's been, 25 games this year of Kyle Schwarber batting fourth in the lineup. 9 games this year batting first in the lineup. Now, here's what's fascinating about these splits. And this just goes to my point about Kyle Schwarber as the leadoff hitter. In his 9 games batting leadoff this year, 43 plate appearances, Kyle Schwarber, 4 home runs. Batting fourth this year in 25 games and 107 plate appearances, Kyle Schwarber has 6 home runs. Now, I get the other numbers that are going to be very concerning, and if you're manager Rob Thompson, this is why, the baseball people there, the analytics people, they certainly, they know all the stuff. They got all the details there. Schwarber batting first this year, a 200 batting average, and an 892 OPS. Batting fourth this year, a .314 batting average, and a 1.030 OPS. Obviously, the numbers are much better batting fourth this year. I'm just saying 4 home runs in the 9 games he led off versus 6 home runs in the 25 games batting fourth. I mean, I'd love to go back and look at those 9 games and see if the Phillies won those games. I would imagine that if we look at all those 9 games, they have to have. I'd be surprised if they didn't have a winning record in those 9 games. So, but hey, I'm not a Major League Manager. I just pretend to be one on TV. I'm Scott Seidenberg. Hit me up on Twitter at ScottsOnAir, ScottsOnair. This is Live Bet Sunday. Today's Sunday, Mother's Day. Live Bet Sunday here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. The Dallas Stars with a 5-2 lead over the Winnipeg Jets. And you know what? The net is empty here in the closing seconds. That's because Winnipeg was on a power play, so they did pull the goaltender, but no empty net goals as the game ends 5-2. So if you played that live over 7.5, it did not come through for you, even though you were kind of live with the net being empty there. But with Dallas on the penalty kill, a couple of shots down the ice, Winnipeg really controlling the possession, though, on that power play, especially not just a 5-on-4, it was a 6-on-4. So a win for the Dallas Stars as they remain the only team here in these Stanley Cup playoffs that has not lost back-to-back games. They lost Game 1 to the Avalanche. They won Game 2. They lost Game 4 to the Avalanche. They won Game 5. They lost Game 6. They won Game 7. They lost Game number 2 to the Jets. They win Game 3. Dallas, the only team here in this postseason that has not lost back-to-back games. So Dallas wins. They take a 2-1 lead in this series. And in a series that I think is, I could see this one going 7 just like Colorado and Dallas did. I would not be shocked if we get a Winnipeg win in game number 4. And this series winds up 2-2, going back to Winnipeg for game number 5. We'll take a look once it is posted if there's odds on that game just yet. And yep, we have the official odds coming up for Tuesday. Dallas minus 135, Winnipeg plus 114. Your total is at 5.5, minus 125 to the over. Your series market now, Dallas a minus 320 favorite to win the series. Is there value on Winnipeg plus the 260? Now you have to start doing the math. You got to figure it out, because if you think they're going to win the series, well, you would like them to not go down 3-1, because then you'd get obviously a much bigger price on them to win the series. So if you're betting them now at plus 260, that means, let's say you bet them at plus 114 to win the game in game number 4. Then when they're home, they're probably small favorites, maybe around the minus 125 to minus 130 range. So let's see if you do the math. So right now on that plus 260, 100 wins you $260. Or you take your 100 and you do them on game number 1, and that'll win you $114, right? Then you take your 114, then you take your $214, and you bet them again at home in game number 5. And now your payout is $378. Then in game number 6 on the road, maybe you lay off. Right then you're up already more money. Well, no, $380. So you're $316. And then you can decide how you want to play them moving forward. I always think, and the math seems to always work out this way, you're better off just money line rollovering these games as opposed to just betting this price. Because if they're going to win this series, they have to win 3 more games. So you're better off just betting them to win 3 more games than just betting them on this price. But it's all about your risk management and what you want to do. But of course, when you do that, you can decide when to stop. You don't have to lay the you don't have to lay the plus 260 right now, or lay the money right now, play the plus 260, and then if they lose, well, now you lost value in your ticket. Or if they win, there's not really going to be a cash out. and I would not recommend cashing out because they always rob you on the cash out offer anyway. So you're always just better off playing them on a game-by-game basis. So I would not play that right now. I know it's fun to look at the series price just to see where the market has it, but there's no price there that's worth playing it on that, with, like I said, because they're dogs here in game number 4. You're going to be able to play that on the money line. You get the price there. Then you play them in game number 5. All of a sudden, you're pretty much getting almost the same payout, and they don't even have to win the series then. They just have to win the next 2 games and go up 3-2. And let's be honest, if that's not the case, they're not going to win the series. Because I don't see them losing game number 4, winning game number 5, winning game number 6, and winning game number 7. Don't see it happening. Against a Dallas team that hasn't lost back-to-back games this entire postseason, now you want them to lose 3 in a row? No. I could see them losing 2 in a row. If Winnipeg steals game number 4, and then Winnipeg wins at home in game number 5, Dallas probably takes game 6, and this goes back to Winnipeg as a 7-game series. That's probably more likely. Series total games, 7-game series is plus 185. 6 games right now, plus 150. If you think it's going to end in game number 5, it's plus 220. I wouldn't play that as well. Series spread, for those inclined, Dallas minus a game and a half is minus 150. Winnipeg plus a game and a half, plus 130. If you think Winnipeg wins the next 3 games and wins the series 4-2, plus 800 on Winnipeg minus a game and a half. Fun stuff there. We'll talk more Stanley Cup playoffs coming up in a little bit, but we do have a game coming up about 15 minutes or so from now. You got Maple Leafs and the Panthers. So here's a best bet that I'm going to give you for this game, and I'll reiterate this when we come back as well. Maple Leafs team total over 2.5 goals. That is the best bet for this game that is going to start in about 15, 20 minutes from now. Maple Leafs team total over 2.5 goals. Toronto has scored 3 or more goals in 8 of 9 games in this playoffs. They have scored the second most goals this entire postseason at 23. They have the 6th most shots on goal in the entire playoffs. And they have the 6th most Fenwick attempts, and that's Fenwick stats are how many shots that actually get through to the net as opposed to shots that get blocked. So your best bet, Toronto team total over 2.5 goals. That game is coming up in a little less than 15 minutes from right now. Coming up next, we'll get into the Pacers game against the Cleveland Cavaliers. MacKenzie Rivers, NBA handicapper at pregame.com, will join me, Scott Seidenberg, coming up next here on Live Bet Sunday as Kyle Schwarber hits a home run to lead off the top of the second here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Scott Seidenberg back here with you. It's Live Bet Sunday here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We'll talk Cavaliers and Pacers coming up in 15 minutes from now, as that game will tip off at the top of the hour. Cavaliers-Pacers, 5 o'clock Pacific time. That game will tip off 8 o'clock Eastern time. So about 15 minutes from now, we will be joined by MacKenzie Rivers, NBA handicapper, pregame.com, as we will get his take on Cavaliers-Pacers with best bets. Want to remind you of my best bet here in this hockey game, which is starting in 10 minutes from now, and that is going to be the Toronto Maple Leafs team total over 2.5 runs. And once again, I'm going to give you the stats here. Toronto has scored 3 or more goals in 8 of 9 playoff games this season. That's right. They've played 9 games these playoffs, in these Stanley Cup playoffs. They have scored 3 or more goals in 8 of those 9 playoff games. There's 1 game that got shut out by Ottawa. That's it. They have scored the second most goals in total in these Stanley Cup playoffs with 23. And if you look at the advanced stats and you see the Corsi-Fenwick stats, or something that I like to look at in hockey. It's an analytical stat that measures your possessions. How much are you dominating the possession, dominating the play over the course of a game. And it measures all your data, all your shot attempts. Your Fenwick shot attempts are how many shot attempts are you, your Corsi shot attempts first. How many shot attempts overall? They could be blocked. They could get through to the net. They could be on the goal. They could be missed. Whatever could happen. Just how many shot attempts? That's your Corsi percentage. Your Fenwick percentage is how many shots that aren't blocked, that actually get through to the net. And so if we're looking at those numbers, the Toronto Maple Leafs, with 361 shots that went through to the net, 7th most in these Stanley Cup playoffs. If you're looking at the amount of shots on goal, with 232, the Toronto Maple Leafs 7th most in these Stanley Cup playoffs. The goals scored, Toronto Maple Leafs 32, 2nd most in these Stanley Cup playoffs. The number I gave before was the 5 versus 5 numbers, the 5-on-5. So instead of 5 versus 5, I had to do all situations. So that could be 5-on-5, even strength, or on the power play or on the penalty kill, all that stuff. So they scored 23 even strength goals this postseason. That's also the 2nd most in this entire Stanley Cup playoffs. But overall, 32 goals in the 9 games in all situations. That's the 2nd most in these playoffs. For those trying to do a little math, a little average, that's 3.5 per game. We are going best bet. Toronto team total over 2.5 goals. This has been an over series. And as much as I respect Sergei Bobrovsky in net, he's been shaky. He's allowed Toronto to score goals. If we look at Bobrovsky's stats in this entire postseason, I mean, we could just look at what he's done here against the Toronto Maple Leafs, where in the last game, 4 goals allowed on 31 shots. The game 2, 4 goals allowed on 20 shots. Game number 1, 5 goals allowed on 30 shots. I'm supposed to expect him to only allow 2 tonight? Then we go to the Tampa series, 3 goals allowed, 2 goals allowed in game number 4, 4 goals allowed in game number 3, a shutout in game number 2, but only 19 shots against. That was more of a team dominant win. And 2 goals against in game number 1. Same thing, 22 shots against. Not a lot of shots. Toronto has had 30, 20, and 31, but even in that game where they had 20, they scored 4 goals on Bobrovsky. Yeah, the best bet for this game, puck is about to drop in 5 minutes from now. We are going Toronto team total over 2.5 goals. And another stat that we can talk about is if they score, will they score first? And I'll give you those numbers in just a moment. But I want to remind you that best bets are brought to you by G-Bank. So let me tell you guys that we are looking at a couple of systems here, right, when it comes to this. We got the team that loses the game scores first the following game. Right now in the Stanley Cup playoffs, 30 out of 46 times. 30 out of 46 times. The team that lost the prior game scores the first goal. Now, of those teams that lose the game prior, yes, they've scored the first goal in the next game 30 out of 46 times. But they've also scored a goal in the first period in 32 of those games. Let that sink in. In 32 of the 46 games, the team that is coming off the loss has scored a goal in the first period. So you can add to this best bet and just, bet Toronto to score a goal in the first period. Those odds right now, if we look up on DraftKings, Toronto team total over a half a goal in the first period, minus 170. That's not a lot of juice to lay. Look at Florida's team total over a half a goal in the first period, minus 225. I wouldn't lay minus 225, but minus 170 on the Leafs to score in the first period when the team that is coming off of the loss, like Toronto is, has scored in the first period 32 out of 46 times. That's a record of 32 and 14. If I told you a bet was 32 and 14, like when I talk about my NBA trends and the overs hitting at a certain rate, if I told you something was 32 and 14, what would you say? Well, you would want to make that bet every time. You would want to make that bet. 32 out of 14, 32 and 14. That's a bet you'd want to make. So, minus 170 odds. I like Toronto to score in the first period. But once again, the best bet that we're giving out, because that's like a subcategory, a sub-tier of the best bet. The main best bet, though, is Toronto team total over 2.5 goals. I also don't hate them on the money line. Everyone's giving love to Florida. I get it. Toronto, this is the best version of the Leafs that we've seen in years. And I know that it's Joseph Woll in net and it's not Anthony Stolarz, and they're hoping to get Anthony Stolarz back when the series shifts back to Toronto for game number 5. But I think this price that we're seeing here on this game, with the Panthers north of $2 favorites and the Leafs at plus 170 to win, is disrespectful to the Leafs. So, main best bet number 1, Toronto team total over 2.5 goals. Best bet number 2, just below that, Toronto Maple Leafs minus 170 to score a goal in the first period. Third best bet, plus 170, would be the Toronto Maple Leafs on the money line. Fourth best bet is just the over in the game of 5.5 minus 130. I wonder if you can same game parlay all of those, because that's hitting right now. I'm Scott Seidenberg. Hit me up on Twitter at ScottsOnAir, ScottsOnair. You want to know where the real money is going? Unlike other sources, our betting splits come straight from Circa and DraftKings Sportsbooks, giving you insight into where the sharp action is landing. Circa is known for taking big bets from professional bettors, while DraftKings provides a broader market perspective. That means you're getting the real action, not just the public money, but the kinds of wagers that move the lines. See the percentage of bets versus the percentage of handle for every game across every major sport, helping you make smarter, more informed bets. Get VSiN's exclusive betting splits for as little as $9.99 for your first month at vsin.com/subscribe. One side note here on the baseball game in progress. Phillies with a 1-0 lead over the Cleveland Guardians. Kyle Schwarber led off the bottom of the second inning with a solo home run. So I talk about Schwarber leading off and his leadoff home runs. He leads off the second inning with a home run. Go figure. We're going to talk about the Cavs, Pacers, and the rest of the NBA playoffs coming up next with MacKenzie Rivers from pregame.com. I'm Scott Seidenberg. It's Live Bet Sunday here on VSiN.
This is Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Back here on Live Bet Sunday. I'm Scott Seidenberg here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Early on here in the first period in Florida, the Panthers have a power play opportunity just 3 minutes in. And so we'll see if they convert on this power play, which is not going to do much for our best bet. I mean, if anything, I actually don't hate it. Give Toronto a little bit more motivation. Chase the game. Score some goals. And we'll keep an eye on the action there. Meanwhile, Phillies a 1-0 lead over the Guardians. Go into the top of the third inning. Your only run, a Kyle Schwarber solo home run to lead off the top of the second. Funny, I talk about how much I love Kyle Schwarber leading off, and bang, hits a leadoff home run to start the second inning. But joining us now on the Progressive Guest Line as we get back into the NBA playoffs, Cavs and Pacers tipping off about 20 minutes or so from now. He is MacKenzie Rivers, NBA handicapper over at pregame.com. Mac, thanks so much for joining us here on Live Bet Sunday. Before we get into Cavs Pacers, I want to quickly look back on what we saw between the Thunder and the Nuggets earlier today. You know, if you look at Jokic's numbers over the last 3 games in this series, kind of pedestrian compared to what he normally is. What are the Thunder doing to shut down Jokic or to keep him contained in this series?
Well, Jokic is a genius. He is a basketball savant. He wants to do everything on a basketball court. He averaged a 30-point triple-double. He's probably the greatest player in the world, if not the greatest player since Michael Jeffrey Jordan. And they're saying, you're going to have to be Michael Jeffrey Jordan. We're not going to let you dissect us like Jason Kidd. We're not going to let you pass. We're going to have everybody stick to their man more so than they do against any other player in the league, essentially saying, all right, we're going to give you one-on-one versus Hartenstein versus Chet Holmgren in his second year. You're going to have to score 40. He did that in game 1, and he's averaging 25 shots per game in this series. He's kind of answering the bell from a decision-making standpoint, but he's just off right now. He's not taking advantage of what should be advantage matchups. You don't game plan for Jokic to go 0 for 10 from 3. That's just good fortune.
So now the Thunder overwhelming favorites to win this series. Do you agree with the pricing? You think this series is over and it's OKC now moving forward?
I do. I mean, how different would we think about this series from a media point of view if Chet Holmgren makes 1 of 2 free throws or if they foul in a more logical way in game 1? They've dominated most of the play in this series. And in clutch time, today was an exception. The Nuggets have been better, and that's kind of been the Nuggets formula. They are, like the Pacers, an excellent clutch team, even better than their actual net rating would suggest. So I think the Thunder are good here, and I think the Thunder, more than ever, are in line to win the West because I'm not excited about what the Timberwolves are doing. I think it's really the Warriors falling apart in that other side of the bracket. So the Thunder are going to be in the championship. I bet that early in the season. I would bet it now at minus 190.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, earlier you could. I mean, I feel like we're going to be looking back on this and thinking to ourselves, could you believe that we actually got plus money on the Oklahoma City Thunder to win the Western Conference? Like, there's no one else in the West. MacKenzie.
Yeah, essentially. And people will point back and say they had the number 1 point margin of any team ever. And I agree with that. But I think the way the game is played now, you see teams like the Cavs and the Thunder, have historic point margins. I don't think they're historically great, but they're better than everybody else by a significant number.
MacKenzie Rivers, NBA handicapper over at pregame.com, joining me, Scott Seidenberg, here on Live Bet Sunday. MacKenzie joins us on the Progressive Guest Line. Let's get into this Cavs-Pacers game. Cleveland in game number 3. It was the first time, MacKenzie, since April 23rd that they had their full complement of players, and they won convincingly. But I didn't even think that they looked that great. They dominated the first half of the first quarter before letting Indy come all the way back and tie that first quarter. But then they dominate the second quarter, and they wind up winning that game convincingly. Now another game with their players back in Darius Garland and Mobley and Hunter.
Yeah.
How do you see the Cavs playing in this one against the Pacers? The market, maybe it's the zigzag, whatever it is, market now has Cleveland -5 as we've seen it go down from -5.5 to -5.
Yes, and I think that's a great reason to bet the Cavs because sometimes the market loves a trend, and if you split it up into different buckets, it's not really as great as you might think it is. So if you're a home team that just lost their last game, the bounce back, the best bounce back you can ask for, the crowd is going crazy. You're 54% going all the way back to 2002 ATS. That's a good bet. If you're a favorite, you're 55%. If you're a dog, it's more like 50-50. And if you're a dog of 5+, it's actually the other way. It's a team to fade. So that's why I like the Cavs here because I think when you're looking at a trend, it's like, how much can I mentally say, okay, this is what I'm going to do in this game? How much can I turn the stereo dial up to 10? The Pacers really wanted to win game 3. They really want to win game 4, but I just think they're an inferior team. The Cavs shot less than 30% from 3 again in game 3. And for the second game in a row doing that, they had a 20-point lead late in the game. The only difference is they closed it out. A lot of that is Darius Garland coming back. You say this is the second game healthy? I would say this is the first game that they've been healthy since April 23rd, because when you have a ball-dominant guard, Darius Garland led the Cavs in touches, more than Mitchell by about 5 touches per game in the regular season. He's just going to take a game. I always give him a mulligan. The more ball-dominant you are, the more the first game, I just ball it up and throw it out. He'll be back in this game. He was 1 for 10 to start the game. Despite all that, despite Mobley coming back and having the ball come off his hands multiple times in the first quarter, they dominated the game. That was the most impressive I've been with the Cavs all season, even despite their historic regular season.
All right, so if we're looking at a prop in this game, are we looking to attack a guy like Darius Garland, who, as you mentioned, you give him the mulligan for that first game? Now we expect a better performance. I mean, looking at the numbers inside that first game, he played a good complement of minutes, but he didn't exactly contribute the way that, maybe we thought that Garland would contribute. He only had 10 points and 3 assists in 25 minutes.
Absolutely. This is my best bet for the afternoon. Darius Garland over 21.5 points and assists combined. In the regular season, he averaged 21 points and 7 assists. We're getting a 7-point buffer because there's some uncertainty about him being healthy. But the way he was moving, the way he was playing defensively, getting into the right positions, getting good shots, I think it was just rust. I think when you look at rust versus injury, it was almost all on the rust side of the equation. And Donovan Mitchell is averaging 41, 6, and 6. So the Pacers aren't thinking about Garland. They're not game planning for Garland. Donovan Mitchell's having one of the best, probably LeBron might have had a 2009 run or 2018 run where he did more for the Cavs. But in Cavs history, this is really historic stuff, averaging 40 points per game through 3 games. So they're going to bottle him up as much as possible. And Darius Garland just has to play close to his regular season averages. He played 25 minutes in game 3. I expect that to be 36 if it's a close game. Blowouts will always ruin this bet, but probably could be a closer game. If it's 36, 40 minutes, I think we get there easily. I think he might cover this only with points. We see it all the time, especially when you're younger like he is, 25, 26. Yes, it takes a game, but there's no adjustment. You don't think he's going to get any better over the course of time. This is the exact same prop as it was in game 3. It made sense in game 3 because of the uncertainty. In game 4, I think it's a slam dunk play.
Yeah, if you want to just isolate his points prop, it's at 15.5 minus 125 to the over. If you want to isolate his assist prop, it's at 5.5 even money to the over. And as you mentioned, MacKenzie, at 21.5 going over the points plus assist. I think all 3 hit. I think he goes over 15.5 points. He's going to go over 5.5 assists, and obviously we're going to hit this points plus assists to go over.
Yeah, same game parlay is written all over it. You throw the Cavs on there. Maybe throw an over on there. It's a late start time. We like that for the over. A lot of ways to attack this, for sure. Also, another play I'll throw out is Tyrese Halliburton. He averaged 4 points. He had 4 points in game 3, a historic low for him in 25 playoff games. I think that had everything to do with the 3-2 zone that Kenny Atkinson put out there. So throw that in your same game parlay. I think he gets there too.
You think he
points
goes over
for Halliburton?
Halliburton goes over or under, you're saying?
Under
again? Okay.
I don't think it was bad luck. I think it was 100% the game plan of the Cavs. So it's a little anti-correlation, which we like that when we're cooking up a same-game parlay. But the 3-2 zone, he's not a natural shooter. He's not a guy like, oh, you gave me some space, I'm going to pull up real easy. He's more of a rhythm guy, wants to get one-on-one like he did in game 2 on Max Strus with the step back. He likes to have a guy in front of him. In the zone, he didn't look like he knew what to do. So Halliburton, I don't think that number is adjusted enough.
All right, great stuff. MacKenzie Rivers, check out his work over at pregame.com, Strata Vegas AM podcast every single day. Matt, good stuff, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you later, man.
There he is. MacKenzie Rivers joined us there on the Progressive guest line. So to recap, Mac's best bets. He likes the Cavaliers in this game. They're -5. He gave out a great stat about being the dog in these zigzag spots. Not exactly as good as being the favorite in the zigzag spots. And then best bet was Darius Garland over 21.5 points plus assists. And if you just wanted to isolate the points, it's at 15.5. If you want to isolate the assists, it's at 5.5. And also Tyrese Halliburton to go under his points prop. Right now, Halliburton at 17.5. So we go under Halliburton over on Darius Garland and the Cavaliers. I'm Scott Seidenberg. We'll update you on what's going on the ice and on Sunday Night Baseball with our Phillies bet as well. This is Live Bet Sunday here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.